All right, buckle up, everybody, because Bitcoin is on a bit of a tear right now. Hit an 11-week high. Can you believe it? $68,000. You guys sent in some really thought-provoking articles about it, not just about this recent surge, but where Bitcoin might be heading in the wild world of DeFi.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is this Bitcoin surge. It's not just some random blip, It's all happening against the backdrop of, well, some pretty major things happening in the real world.
All right, now you've got me curious. What kind of real-world things are we talking about?
Well, for example, that U.S. jobs report that just came out, it was a real mixed bag, some good, some not so good. And, that makes traders nervous, right? Especially with the Fed about to make some big decisions on interest rate.
The Fed, right, everyone's waiting to see what they'll do. But I've always wondered, why does what the Fed does even matter for crypto? I mean, aren't they like two completely different worlds?
That's a great question. Because, see, there's a good chance the Fed might actually cut interest rates come November. And when that happens, well, it could weaken the U.S. dollar. And when the dollar weakens, assets not tied to any particular currency, like Bitcoin, they suddenly start looking a whole lot more attractive.
Ah, so it's like a seesaw, right? One goes down, the other goes up.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more, well, interesting. The Fed, they're also trying to walk this tightrope of keeping inflation under control. And if they cut rates too much, well, that could actually make inflation worse. So you've got this push and pull. On the one hand, a potential rate cut that could really benefit Bitcoin. But on the other hand, this underlying uncertainty that makes everyone a little jittery.
Oh, I bet. And that uncertainty in the market, that's what gets all those day traders, their hearts racing, right? Buying and selling like crazy.
Exactly. And that's where the whales come in, as they say. Those big-time investors we always hear about.
Ah, yes, the whales. I bet they're not too keen on all this uncertainty, are they? I mean, don't they prefer, like, calm waters to swim in?
You hit the nail on the head. Whales, they thrive on stability. Too much volatility makes them hesitant to make any big moves. But here's the thing, and this is what I find so fascinating. Despite all the uncertainty right now, the data tells a very different story about what these whales are actually doing, and it might surprise you.
Okay, all right. You've really got me curious now. What is the data telling us? What are these whales up to?
Well, get this. The on-chain data, especially from CryptoQuant, it shows that they're actually accumulating Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're not selling. They're buying more.
So they're doubling down even with all this, will they, won't they from the Fed.
Exactly.
Huh. That's a big signal.
Yeah. And, another thing we have to keep in mind is the historical patterns here, right? This year, this is a halving year for Bitcoin.
Right. The halving year. It's funny, the articles mention that, but I always get a little fuzzy on, like, what exactly that means. Could you, remind me?
Yeah, of course. So basically, every 4 years, roughly, Bitcoin has this, pre-programmed event where the rate at which new Bitcoins are created, it gets cut in half.
Okay.
And historically, this reduction in supply, basic economics, tends to lead to some pretty significant price surges.
Right. Less Bitcoin coming in, more demand, higher price. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the data from, we're talking like 2012, 2016, 2020, those previous halving years, it's interesting.
Yeah, what does it tell us?
Well, in those previous halving years, Bitcoin saw some pretty remarkable gains in Q4. Like in 2012, it was up 9%.
Okay.
2016, it jumped to 59%.
Right.
And get this, in 2020, 171%.
171%. Are you serious? Are you suggesting that we could see something like that again this year?
Whoa. Hold on now. Got to be careful, right? Each Bitcoin cycle is unique. Past performance is not indicative of future results.
Of course.
Always other factors at play.
Right. No, for sure. But still, I mean, the potential for growth, right? Especially combined with what we're seeing with, the whale stocking up. It's definitely something to think about, Speaking of new developments and potential, though, can we talk about Kraken jumping into the DeFi game here with this whole wrapped Bitcoin thing, kBTC?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm not a DeFi expert by any means.
Sure.
So, break it down for me. What is wrapped Bitcoin? And what makes Kraken's version, what makes it different? So wrapped Bitcoin, kBTC, Kraken diving into DeFi. There's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it really shows you how fast things move in the crypto space. But think of it this way. Imagine you have this really valuable limited edition sneaker.
Okay, I like where this is going. Big sneaker guy. So you've got my attention.
Perfect. So you've got this awesome sneaker, right? But it only exists in the, in the real world. Wrapped Bitcoin is kind of like creating a digital version of that sneaker. like a digital twin that can exist and be traded in the digital world, specifically on other blockchains like Ethereum, which is where a lot of this DeFi stuff happens.
Okay, so it's like you're creating a digital stand-in for your Bitcoin that can then interact with all these different DeFi platforms and applications. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And it opens up a ton of possibilities. So suddenly your Bitcoin can be used for all sorts of things, like lending, borrowing, even earning interest in ways that just weren't possible before.
Okay, now I'm starting to see the appeal. But the article did mention that there are other wrapped Bitcoins out there already, like the kBTC. So what makes Kraken's kBTC any different? What makes it stand out?
You're asking all the right questions. You see, in the world of DeFi, trust and transparency, those are like non-negotiables, and that's what Kraken's emphasizing with kBTC.
And how are they doing that?
Well, for starters, every single kBTC is backed 1.1 with actual Bitcoin held by Kraken. No funny business. But here's the real kicker. Kraken's making all of the addresses where they're holding these Bitcoin reserves totally public, verifiable on the blockchain.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Anyone can audit it, which is huge for building trust.
That's a great point, especially with all the, the concerns people have about transparency in the DeFi space. It definitely sounds like Kraken's going all in on this. The article mentioned integrations with all kinds of platforms right out of the gate. Paraswap, Yearn, Curve, Velodrome. That's a pretty big deal, right?
It is. It tells you they're serious about making kBTC the go-to wrapped Bitcoin, And with all the questions surrounding WBTC and how centralized it is, Kraken definitely sees an opportunity. By making kBTC super easy and secure to use across all these different DeFi platforms, well, they're really positioning themselves at the center of this whole ecosystem as it grows.
So let me see if I've got this right. We've got Bitcoin's price being pulled in different directions by these big economic forces, not to mention these whales, right? Yeah. And at the same time, Kraken's over here shaking things up with kBTC, which could totally change the game for Bitcoin and DeFi. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like we're on the edge of something big.
It really does, doesn't it? I mean, the macro environment is definitely keeping things interesting right now. Let's put it that way. But all the reasons Bitcoin took off in the first place, the fact that it's scarce, it's a potential hedge against inflation, that hasn't changed. And now you bring kBTC into the picture, which brings all this new utility and potential value. It's going to be fascinating to see where Bitcoin goes from here, that's for sure.
It really is. You almost wish you had a crystal ball to see the future, don't you? But hey, that's half the fun of following crypto. You never know what's going to happen next.
That's the truth. But one thing's for sure. If you want to navigate this space, you have to understand the forces at play, the risks, and of course, the rewards. Now more than ever.
Couldn't agree more. Well, there you have it. Bitcoin, riding the waves of uncertainty, attracting the attention of whales, and now diving headfirst into DeFi thanks to Kraken and kBTC. It definitely seems like this wild ride is just getting started. Thanks for joining us, everyone.